Some beautiful photography of Cork there. Happy Christmas! We're full of festive cheer here tonight, aren't we? Oh yes we are!
Oh no, we're not.
Tough audience, guys. Tougher than getting a pint without a vaccine. Tonight we'll have music from the wonderful Lorna Moore. We'll also be taking a trip to rugged West Cork to meet with Ian Bailey as he sits down to talk about the tragic events of 25 years ago this week. It remains one of the most enthralling unsolved cases in Irish history, and later Ian will chat to us about the case, his poetry and the recent media attention surrounding him. Now, have you ever thought, I don't drink enough at Christmas? Well, good news, because Shane has a cocktail that's going to blow you away. Shane, what is the cocktail called?
It's called Shane's Christmas Cracker. So what we have is a vanilla vodka, amaretto, some Baileys, and your milk of choice, whether it's from the mother's tit, from a cow, or for the vegans, whether it be oat or soya.
Oat milk. They'd make milk out of anything these days.
So I'll kick off. What we're going to do is we're going to garnish the glass. Make sure you have the special cocktail glass for this. Garnish the glass with some, it depends what you want. In this case, I've used ice and sugar, but you can use your favorite narcotics.
Narcotics.
And we've got some chocolate sauce here. So I just need to add some extra chocolate sauce to the plate. And we're going to get the glass and turn it upside down. We're going to swish that around in the chocolate. And you just let it drip. And once you've got rid of the excess drip, you dip it into your choice of flavour in here. Give it a good swirl around. And that's your garnish complete.
Excellent.
But by all means, feel free to change it up and use whatever you want as the garnish. So that's the first one done, and I'll just prepare the second one for you, Kev. Again, just swirl it around. Make sure to get plenty of chocolate on the rim of the glass. And lift it up until you got the suction there, and let the drip drip.
What have you been up to since we last met on the show?
Not much, to be honest, Kev. Just been trying to come up with this cocktail recipe, to be honest, and it's taken a couple of months.
Well, it looks like it's taking a couple of months. There's a lot.
Yeah. Perfect. So we have our glasses garnished, ready to go. So we're going to start off with 2 ounces of vanilla vodka. We were not sponsored by Absolute tonight. Into the glass.
Where are you, Absolute?
Oh, it's not going into the glass. It's supposed to go into the cocktail shaker. Whoops.
In case anybody thought that this was Shane's first attempt, he did have a practice run as well.
2 ounces of your favourite vodka, preferably vanilla for the taste. We're going to go with 1.5 ounces of Amaretto, again, whichever your favourite brand is. Nice and slow into the glass. And then we're going to go with 1.5 ounces of your favourite type of cream liqueur. In this case, we've chosen Bailey's. And in we go. And lastly, we're going to go with 2.5 ounces of your favourite milk. In this case, we've went with a oat milk for myself, as I am a vegan. I'm not a vegan. I am just intolerant to any other milk. So that's 2.5 ounces. We've got 2 in this, so I just need to add a 0.5. And then we're going to just close this. Obviously, we have some ice in the cocktail shaker. Make sure it's nice and tight so we don't have any accidents in the kitchen. Give it a little shake, whatever way you want. Up and down, side to side. And Bob's your uncle. And we pour it into the glass nice and slowly. And there we have it. Shane's Christmas cracker.
And so you put in double those doses to make 2.
Double the doses to make 2, exactly. Enough to tranquilize a horse, basically.
Excellent. Well, I'm always looking for horse tranquilizer. They call it ketamine, but this seems much better.
Happy Christmas, Kev.
Thank you, Shane.
Chin chin.
Chin chin. I didn't know you were Asian. Oh, that is beautiful.
Thoughts, concerns, comments and questions?
It is strong. I think it's like what they gave to Michael Jackson.
It is
I love
lovely.
the almond taste coming through.
It's lovely, yeah. I think that's what makes it.
Right, so you're going to make some of them for the rest of the group?
Absolutely.
Excellent, excellent. Now, have you ever wondered what ears are for? Very important, because without them, we wouldn't be able to wear masks. Now, our next guest has no ears, and for the past 12 months, oh no, sorry, I'm being told that Nemo the fish won't be coming tonight. We'll hopefully get to chat with Nemo later in the series. Instead, we have someone even better lined up. Please welcome Connor Frawley! Connor, welcome. So you won't be thirsty for long. I don't know if you were thirsty to begin with. Shane is
Parched, Kevin. Parched.
On a lovely cocktail.
Can I have mine shaken, not stirred?
No bother, honey.
Thank you, darling. Shane, he's such a lovely man.
You have come with a poem.
We have it here, Kevin. We have it here.
So, pray tell. And that, of course, means... Tell us. Well, super.
Yeah. Thank you.
Happy Christmas, Connor.
Merry Christmas.
Chin
Slosha.
chin.
Cheers. The mix between sweet and alcohol is
Nice,
perfect.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good.
Well, do tell us. Tell us a little bit about the poem first.
It was my sister's, actually. I was at home and I thought I was just having the crack, and I offended some people in the house. They jumped down my throat fairly quick.
Why did I get offended?
Oh, I don't know. I was being myself. People get offended when I'm myself sometimes, you know. I say shit that, you know, you're not allowed to say.
Fair.
But alas, that's where it came from.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'm very curious to hear what played out here.
Crack killers. Generation, I'm offended. You can't say that. Don't talk to me like that. That's mean. Apologize. Fuck you. I say what I want, when I want, and to who I want. I am a good, honest, hard-working man with nothing but goodness and love in my heart. So why is everyone so quick to jump down my throat if I don't say please? Have you ever heard of a joke? A mess? Some comedy in your everyday life? Stop killing the crack.
I think it's very apparent right now what your poem mentions. Like, I think we're half afraid to say anything at the minute because of what someone might say or be offended by something.
Yeah.
It's almost like cancel culture. I know we spoke about that before, Kev, on the show, but you'll be half afraid to say something because someone's going to be offended by something.
Just waiting to be offended, you know. A lot of people are just waiting. Like go to comedy gigs just to be offended.
Yeah.
I think the offence is theirs and they should work on that. You know, if it's coming from a place of like humour, I don't know, I'd say a lot of things, and it's coming from a place of humour, comedy, crack, it's not meant to be taken seriously. It's not meant to be taken anywhere, just funny, flippant comments, you know. I know there's a line or whatever, but like that line is getting a lot closer to just being a fucking, you can't say
100%.
shit. Fuck that, say what you want. If you get offended, you get offended. The offence is yours, not mine.
I've seen it in my career over the last 5 years, and I'm new kid on the block. I haven't been around long. I'm very fresh in my career, but even for the time that I spent in my career, I've seen it. Like, do you know what I mean? People coming to me, people who've just came out of college, started their career, and they're like coming to their managers and stuff like, I want to put in a complaint about this, I want to report this and stuff, and I'm just like, if I tried to report something like this when I was growing up in my first job, I'd be told to fuck off, like, do you know? It's just mad how much has changed over the last 5 years, and I'm just like, where are we going to be in 5 years' time from now? Like,
crazy.
Do you know?
We're
going to be put in jail, like, for saying something bad.
For saying something. What happened to fucking freedom of speech?
And I'm not talking about people who are being racist or anything. I'm just talking about just general talk, like, do you know?
Shit I said like 10 seconds ago.
Yeah.
What did you say to your sister?
I probably called her a bitch or something.
My next guest is a classically trained singer, and she joins us once again. Please welcome Lorna Moore!
Hey!
Hello, Lorna. How are you? Marvelous, Lorna. Please take it away.
Like yourself, Kevin. From now on, our troubles will be miles away. Oh, here we are as in olden days, happy golden days of yore. Faithful friends who are dear to us, gather near to us once more. Through the years we all will be together. If the fates allow, hang a shining star upon the highest mount, yeah. Oh, and have yourself a merry little Christmas, and have yourself a merry little Christmas. Have yourself a merry little Christmas now.
Well done, Lorna. Come around here.
I'm sorry, I thought you wanted an encore. It's just a little something I'm working on at the moment.
It's just a little something you need to keep working on.
Shots fired.
Lorna, tell me, you are the resident pianist at the Mountain Night Hotel. You also teach music, and you do vocal coaching as well.
I suppose my enthusiasm for music education came from the want to unleash the confidence and, not to quote my hero, but the voice within from Christina Aguilera. And then obviously performing, just, it's like therapy really.
Laurie, share your confidence. Is that like, did music help with your confidence, or are you always like confident?
I heard, are you always psychotic? Not are you always confident?
You must hear that a lot more.
I'm pretty sure you hear what you want to hear, I suppose.
I mean, I think it's humbling to think that every single human has an insecurity. So,
definitely.
that kind of is something that I feel connected. Not to say that I want anyone else to feel insecure, but I'm kind of like, let's see how we can work on that, and let's see how we can pull out your strengths. So I suppose I've worked hard to know my strengths. I've worked hard to know my weaknesses. And then when it comes to music, you kind of just have to let yourself go. And if you connect with it, then someone else will. Because energy don't lie.
Now, some of you may be familiar with the hit podcast West Cork, hosted by Sam Bundy and Jennifer Ford. It's a titillating tale of a whodunit murder set against the backdrop of a rugged West Cork by the Atlantic Ocean. It introduces a tragic story to a whole new generation, and it's enthralled listeners as it's unpacked and dissected events revolving around the murder of Sophie Toscan du Plantier. More recently, Sky aired Jim Sheridan's miniseries Murder at the Cottage, and Netflix had their own version too, generating even more interest in this unsolved murder. I caught up with Ian Bailey earlier in the month, ahead of the 25th anniversary of the murder, to hear the latest from the only man arrested in relation to the case, but never charged. West Cork is distinctly unique with its rugged beauty and mountainous terrain. The Atlantic Ocean etches away at the coast, carving out 3 distinct peninsulas. A series of remote towns, fishing villages, and long abandoned castles punctuate the wild landscape. It seems therefore unlikely to be the location for a murder, but that's exactly what happened on the Mizen Peninsula 25 years ago this Christmas. For the harbour village of Skull, with a population of less than 600 at the time, it was a transformative event. This is the house where Sophie Toscan du Plantier, a French television producer, was found murdered just before Christmas 1996. Nobody was ever charged in connection with the crime, and it remains one of the most divisive and enthralling mysteries in the nation. The case has garnered renewed interest through its coverage in the West Cork podcast and more recent TV documentaries. Only one man was arrested in relation to the case, but was never charged. I travelled to West Cork to meet with Ian Bailey to help me understand his unique perspective on the case, the media attention surrounding him, and what it's like to live your life under a cloud of suspicion. He's currently writing his 3rd collection of poems, an exercise, he tells me, which he finds quite cathartic. He had brought with him a copy of one of his other books, A John Wayne State of Mind. I thought it as good a place as any to start in a story that spans 25 years, so began by asking how he came up with the name for his 2nd collection of poems.
I was sat outside on a warm, lovely spring morning somewhere, and I knew in 2019, I knew my worst fears were coming to pass, and the worst fears were that I was going to be tried in Paris for a murder I had nothing to do with, and that I'd always protested, and I still protest my innocence, and I will to my dying day. And it was early in the year, and I thought that the trial, I think, was set for May. And I was just thinking to myself, and I thought, I'm going to have to really toughen up to deal with this. This is going to be something like I've never, ever had to deal with. And I just was jokingly thinking, and I thought, there's a place in West Cork where Maureen O'Hara, the famous actress, used to live, who was in the film The Quiet Man with John Wayne. And I just thought one line, I've got to have to toughen up. I better sort of adopt a John Wayne state of mind. So that became a metaphor for, if you like, a psychological metal jacket to protect me. And then...
So does that jacket have to be worn frequently, or
I think so.
You can...
Well, sometimes it depends on the people and my situation and circumstance. Actually, while I was being tortured in Paris. I was being bonfired on a pyre of lies. I was actually writing. I was using poetry as a way of dealing with the dark bad stuff that was going on that I couldn't do anything about, and so I used poetry as a way of, if you like, cathartic, creative expression.
I was curious how Ian, who was born in Manchester and was working in London at the time, ended up in this remote part of the world. He told me how he visited the east coast of Ireland throughout the late 1980s, before ultimately coming to West Cork in 1991.
I came over on another couple of trips on the east coast, Arklow and Dublin, and met friends there. And then eventually I thought, well, I had a friend in West Cork who said I could use their little holiday cottage, isolated as a sort of base initially. And I did. So I came over in 1991, Midsummer's Day.
In a West Cork way, you mentioned that you were leaving a situation in the UK that seemed quite obscene. And
well, yeah, I mean, I just got tired of it, the place. I just got, I mean, to me, the writing was on the wall, and I think what's happened more recently with Brexit.
Do you think things have improved since
No,
then?
I don't know, but I don't think so. I mean, I just think there's too many people.
Too many people?
I think it's like 65 million people. How many have we got here? We've got 5.5 million on the whole island. You know, and it's like, and you struggle very hard to get in the rat race, you know, in Fleet Street, and it's very competitive, and there's quite a lot of backstabbing. And so I came over here, and I had a sort of game plan, and I made myself known to local newspapers, the Examiner and the Southern Star in Skibbereen, and started writing articles and doing any other jobs I could. And I finished up the first year. I had friends up in Dublin, and I went up to see them, and I was doing odd casual labour and painting sea stones and making brooches out of little stones I found on beaches. Winter was coming. I had a chance of going out on a fishing boat out of Tramore, and I was thinking about that as a possibility. And then I came back. I needed my winter coat, my long black winter coat. So I came back down to Skull. I had left some clothes and things in store to get ostensibly my winter clothes, and then I found work in Skull at the fish plant, which then was processing herring for the Japanese market. They weren't after the actual fish; they were after the female, you know, caviar, herring caviar.
Quite a delicacy then.
Yeah, and hugely expensive over there. So, and then I found work at the fish plant, and I worked the winter there. And I wrote a poem there, Erin's Herring, about the whole thing, about in November of each year, herring shoals are plenty to flow up Erin's southwest rugged coast with coats of silver blue and eyes of red, a cadamilia of herring fish from sea and dumped down dead. And on the land an army of men and women wait to see the iask off the boats, into bins, down the hatches, slit their throats and process catches. Here they come, boys, stuff out those fags, stand back in awe and watch the slaughter. And if the man from Tokyo says yes to bellies full of gold, then Christmas time will be less cold. Then Christmas time will be less cold. But many is the day when the gale of blow on the fishing boat she does not go, leaving workers, some with families, to curse their dependence upon those shoals. And on those days, in smoky huddles, you might observe the herring boys and girls ease their troubles over pints of black beer and the paddy, or wicked paddy. So that's the whiskey, by the way. So we'll curse the lack of accursed pay, hoping that tomorrow will bring 100 million silver things to keep us busy upon the land. Oh, great captain, would you lend a hand? So I wrote that. And so the idea was this, that I'd pursue my journalistic career, and I was writing articles for the Examiner and the Southern Star. Musicians who were coming down. That was one of my specialities. I interviewed Ronnie Drew and a number of them over the years, and the Hot House Flowers. In fact, that was later on, back in 1995. That was. So my idea was that I'd write poetry, and then I was always doing pieces and, you know, getting my hand in, and then eventually I went back to full-time self-employed journalism in 1996, and I was writing away, no shortage of stories. And then just before Christmas of 1996, 25 years ago now, there was an event that everybody that has left, it's like a long, long, dark shadow a ghost of Christmas past, which, sort of comes to haunt not only myself, my ex-partner and the community and other people every year. And there was a murder, most foul, of a lady from France, who it was said I knew, but I didn't know her. Never, wasn't introduced to her. I was the lead journalist at the time. I had a call from the Cork Examiner, who put me onto the story initially. And then I was reporting away, and then all of a sudden I was arrested and accused of a crime. They're saying I committed a crime so I could become the reporter on it. That's just absolutely, bizarre. And I had no shortage of stories. So that was the beginning of a 25-year period of what's really been torture, on and off at different levels. And I was arrested in February the 10th, I think it was, of 1997. And unbeknown to me at the same time, my partner was arrested. She was told that I had admitted the crime, which I never did. I get arrested, my identity's let out, I'm all over the newspapers. Come back, I'm told Jules doesn't want to see me, she's reluctantly accepted I'm the murderer, which was bollocks. And various other things, and then I become the centre, and my career as a journalist at that particular point after the first arrest was pretty well over. When the journalist becomes the subject matter of the story rather than the actual, going after the story,
It's just by association, it's toxic.
Yeah. But then, all right, after the first arrest, I was told I couldn't go back to the studio house where I was living and sleeping and had my little office. Jules didn't want to see me, so I diverted the car to a friend's house just outside Skibbereen, an artist now passed away, Russell Barrett. Now, Russell wasn't in, and this is about 1 o'clock in the morning when I'm being dropped off after 12 hours of being accused of something I had nothing to do with and protesting my innocence. So in the morning, there was a lodger in the house, and he let me in. It was a room there, and I slept in the room. And in the morning, I got up for breakfast, and a man came down as well. He was lodging at the house. And this is a photograph of the man who came down. And his name is Stephen Martin Graham, or Graham Martin Stephen Graham. And it turned out that he was a former British Army squaddie. And I was there for a night, 2 nights. And then I managed to get back through to Jules, and she said, "No, come on back to the Prairie." And when I got back to the Prairie, the place was under siege by media. I gave a brief press conference just to get them rid of them, because I'm a media operator, and I know, if you give them something, they'll go. If you don't, they'll hound you. So on St. Patrick's Day of that year, 1997, who should I see coming down the drive? And we used to live in a fairly isolated rural place, but this gentleman. And he just happening to come by, and I knew immediately that he was a spy. I just innately knew that he was, he wasn't randomly just dropping by to see me, because he didn't really know me. Anyway, he came down, and I think I sort of sent him away. And then he came back, and then he told me a story, and he told me how he'd been recruited by members of the Garda Síochána to get to know me, and how they were hoping that he could persuade me or get me drunk or something to say that I had committed this crime. And he told me the whole story, and I recorded his account of it. And it turned out they were paying him money, cash, small sums of cash, buying him clothes.
Was that what we call entrapment, essentially?
Yeah, that would have been, absolutely. And not only that, they were supplying him with hashish. And so he subsequently contacted the Sunday World. They sent down a reporter with a photographer. The photographer searched Martin Graham before he went to meet them. And then when he came back, he produced and it's a photograph of this, so you can check it out online, what could have been a bar of chocolate in an evidence bag, but actually was a large slab of hashish, of which I didn't see any or really know about too much. And he told me that they'd offered him £5,000 at the time if he could deliver a statement to them which would allow them to send an amended file to the DPP, which would lead to me being charged. Now, he was hounded out of the country subsequently when they realised he'd been turned, in effect, into a double agent. And he came over for the civil action. He's now passed away, bless him. He's one of the last people buried in Skull Graveyard.
Last year, there was a renewed public interest in The Extraordinary Case, which was fueled by 2 new series on Netflix and Sky. Ian told me how he had offered Jim Sheridan access, and so I was curious to know if he had watched the series Murder at the Cottage and what his thoughts were.
So his came out first, and I saw the first couple of episodes, and it was very sad. It made me made me very sad. And I was sad for the victim, I was sad for my Jules, I was sad for myself. And so I thought, I'm not going to watch any more of this for now, and I haven't. And then the next flick came out a few weeks, 2 or 3 weeks later. And in it is a great big lie, a great big dirty, sinking, rotten lie told by the senior detective who's there saying that he's the one who came to visit me just before the first arrest and told me he was going to put me in the frame, in effect. His name is, he's still alive, Dermot Dwyer. He's in the Netflix production. And the first thing he says is, because after my arrest, when I came back, I found my clothes and wardrobe had just been like rubbished, and all my best clothes, my winter coat, my long dark coat, taken. Then I got a list of inventory of the things that were taken, jeans and this, that and the other. And on the top of the list of the things taken is quite clearly a long dark coat. And I was seen on the Christmas Day swim in Skull, in a video that was shot quite clearly in a long dark coat and a nice fedora hat, which they took and trashed. And so in the Netflix, Dwyer says, I burnt the coat. And they get a woman who was staying over at the cottage at Christmas to say she saw a coat in a bucket. Absolute nonsense, absolute lies. Dirty, rotten, stinking lies.
And did you first just see that in the Netflix one?
Yeah. Well, so I haven't seen the Netflix. Somebody sent me the clip. But anybody, excuse me, anybody hearing that, not knowing any of the background of the story, is likely to believe that. And it's total nonsense. You know, I never had an explanation of what happened to my long black coat.
And I mean, you may describe yourself or not as litigious. I mean, is there any point in pursuing Netflix?
I don't know. The lawyers are looking at it at the moment. It's very hard. It's very difficult, and you need an awful lot of money. I mean, this is one of the problems. So when the common man comes to fight the big, either the state, and I'm fighting 2 states in effect, both France and Ireland, comes to take on big multinationals in American courts, you know, you're talking megabucks. And there's never any, you know, we know this, there's never any sort of guaranteeable result. So,
do you think that there's some warmth having built towards you over the preceding years? You know, that the temperature has changed.
Well, I think a lot of people who might have been in the he did it camp are now in the he didn't do it camp. What I did notice after the podcast came out was that a whole load of young people who weren't even born when this happened were introduced to the story. And I started to notice in the marketplaces and just out and about, I got a lot of support from young people. And more recently, I think I was a social media virgin until, 3 or 4 months ago now. Excuse me, and I hadn't really planned it.
What,
it was
what
just a bit of
platform have you decided?
Well, I started with, I somehow knocked Instagram off my thing there accidentally a few weeks ago, but I'm not really very clever when it comes to this stuff, but I got Facebook and Twitter, and there are a number of trolls who've been trolling me, and are really, it's sort of almost childlike, pathetic things. It's quite clearly coordinated, or there's some coordination between them. I have an idea who one or two, I think I've outed one or two of them, but I've got a lot of supporters on Twitter who follow me, and I've got these anonymous, well, I'm saying troll hunters and cyberbullying people who go after the cyberbullies, who are, some people call them, what do they call them? They call them keyboard warriors. I call them keyboard fucking wankers. So, and then, you know, quite often, recently I've got this thing where people come up to me lads come up to me from Cork and say, Ian, can I get a selfie with you? I don't know if that's not a north side or if that's a Cork accent or not, but it sounds like it. I'm like, Ian, can I get a selfie with you? And I said, well, sure you can, yeah, but it does help if you buy a copy of my book of poetry.
"25 years after the murder, this case continues to take many twists and turns. Ian was tried in absentia in France and was sentenced to 25 years. He remains a fugitive, having won a High Court battle in Ireland against his extradition to France. On the anniversary of the case, I asked him what hopes he has for any future developments.
I don't know, I would hope that somebody has the courage to just acknowledge it wasn't me. And there is, I mean, we learnt from the, actually it was in the French Rub, but we learnt from the last episode of the podcast, there was DNA, male DNA found on the body, on an item of clothing, I think the boot. And that DNA clearly didn't match mine. And yet that seems to have been ignored completely. Whose was that drop of blood that was found on the body, on her clothing? Also, there was the case of a man who was a local man who was driving on Monday the 23rd of December 1996 from Goleen in West Cork up to Cork City, and he came by the road, he took the road through Doris, he was going on what we call the back road, the Bantry Road to Cork, rather than going up through Skibbereen and Clon. And he was overtaken at about 7:30. His recollection is very strong to this day, by a blue car, speeding away on a blind bend, almost caused him to crash. And he was very angry, because you would be. And he reported that then to the detectives who started the door-to-door inquiries on what would have been Christmas Eve, Tuesday the 24th. And he gave them details of that incident, and he gave them details of the car number plate he could remember. Now, I only became subsequently aware of this many, many years later, when he gave a restatement to what was known as the McAndrew reinvestigation report, which I don't know, and that's never been answered. So it was interesting that he reported this to the guards on the Christmas Eve, and they were doing a general appeal for information, anything, and yet there was never an appeal. So the guards were aware of the fact that this had been reported. That statement never went to the DPP. It wasn't included in the DPP file. It was buried, in other words. And there was never an appeal for a driver of a blue car, or anybody who might have seen a blue car being driven strangely on that morning. And I found that very, very, strange. And I for many years thought, well, could you say that the driver of the car was the murderer? And in the same way that you couldn't absolutely say that they were, you couldn't rule them out.
Wow. Very poignant thoughts from Ian. It is definitely one of the most divisive things that we've seen in the country, particularly amplified by all these documentaries that have been made about it.
100%. It was interesting to watch Ian there in that interview. I think it was very raw compared to what we've seen on Netflix and Sky. Even looking at there where he was saying, Jules was brought in for an interview while Ian was also being interviewed by the guards, and she was told that he admitted to the murder when he didn't admit to the murder. I think things like that need to be brought to the surface more and more.
That ultimately means that you just can't trust what you hear.
100%. And the more and more documentaries and stuff that we're seeing brought out, the West Cork podcast, Netflix, Sky, there's just so many things being brought to the surface now. It's like what to believe at this stage, and it's getting almost frustrating, because at one stage I was like, oh, Ian did the murder 100%, and then now I'm like, no, Ian didn't do the murder, and now I'm completely on the fence, and it's like, what do you believe at this stage? And I'm like,
funny. He mentioned how when the West Cork documentary or the podcast came out, that it introduced a group of younger people to the story. You were obviously aware of it because you're kind of that age, but it did change your opinion.
Yeah, 100%. I feel for Ian, you know. I feel almost pity for him, and at this stage we don't know who's guilty, who's not guilty, and I at this stage I genuinely, personally, am on the fence. I can't even make a decision at this stage because there's so many different stories coming out, and there's missing fences, there's blood on the scene that no one can account for whose DNA it is, and it's just like, it's almost, for me, it's similar to the Madeleine McCann case. It's like, I want to know before I die at this stage who is the you know, who's,
as long as the right person is brought to justice. If the wrong person is brought to justice, then that's not justice, obviously. All I have to go on is what I saw tonight. I didn't see any of the Netflix, Spotify, or fucking podcasts. I didn't see any of it.
There's no scientific evidence to link Ian Bailey to the crime scene in any way whatsoever. It's all hearsay and people's opinion within a small little, I don't want to come across bad here, but I come from a small community from where I grew up. I know how people form opinion and rumours spread, and I know that West Cork and the area where the murder happened and where Ian is from and stuff, that over the last few years it's grown arms and legs, and people are unwilling to look at the bigger picture here. We need to put aside the fact that, you know, Ian is obviously a suspect in this case or whatever, but he's also a human, and he has lost his whole career because of this.
Yeah, and more than his career, just his whole life.
Yeah.
100%.
On that thing of him being a human, I met him that one time, and he's a gent. From my personal experience with him, he's a gent, he's a charmer, and someone you can have the crack with. That's like, obviously nothing has to do with the case, but like, as a man, as a person, he was an absolute charmer.
You can catch the full uncut interview with Ian on this channel. There'll be a link at the end of the show. Now, we have one more treat before we go. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up one more time for the wonderful Lorna Moore.
Greeting cards have all been sent. The Christmas rush is through, but I still have one wish to make.
we've got a couple of presents under the tree.
Connor, this one is for you.
Oh, interesting.
We want tension in the room. What does he have? Who is it from?
Oh my goodness.
Yes!
Is that not the missing trench coat in the Ian Bailey case?
Oh my god! Woo. I know you're fucking.
What about this campaign? Oh my goodness. Just. What is that? Oh, actually, just as it happens, I just do need to give a word from our sponsors. I wouldn't be able to have the fulfilling life that I do without them. Well, boys and girls, that's about all we have time for. We do have a competition before we go. So be in with a chance to win a €100 voucher for the corn store in Cork City. Just email or tweet us your answer to this important question. Do fish have ears? The winner will be announced on St. Stephen's Day. I hope you enjoyed the Christmas special. God bless. I'll be back with more episodes in January. Good night, everyone! Woo!